Hi everyone, my name is Diana Apollo, the Gender Equality Specialist at ARJA Canada. Today, we're going to discuss the Feminist International Assistance Policy, the FIAP, and this is the Canadian government's stand on gender equality on all Canadian funded projects. For this session, we're going to discuss why we do gender equality, the FIAP's commitment, core action areas, FIAP's alignment with the BRIGHT project, minimum expectations of gender equality on all Canadian funded projects, as well as how we do gender equality. So we'll discuss some gender themes, elements of the BRIGHT project. So we're going to discuss some gender approaches from where gender has come from, where it's been, and where we are headed on most of our programming. So the first approach was the WID, the Women in Development approach, and followed by the GAD, which is the Gender and Development approach, and the GJ, which is the Gender Justice slash Feminist International Assistance Policy. So I'll go down each column of each gender approach and then sum it up. So under the WID, it focuses on reach, and the objective was to include women in academic activities. The strategy here focused on inviting women as participants, seeking to reduce barriers to participation, implementing a quota system for participation in training events. The indicators that we used in this particular approach were number or proportion of women participating in a project activity, for example, attending training, joining a group, or receiving services. So programming here was considered to be neutral and somewhat sensitive, but not really focusing on changing any social or cultural norms. Under the gender and development approach, it focused on benefit. So objective here was to increase women's well-being, for example, food security, income and health, and the strategy focused on designing a project considering the gender needs, preferences, and constraints to ensure that women benefit from project activities. Some of the indicators that were used during this time were disaggregated data with positive and negative outcome indicators such as productivity, income assets, nutrition, and time use. So most programming here was considered to be sensitive and accommodating, and not also bringing long-lasting sustainable change. Under the Gender Justice Feminist International Assistance Policy, the FIAP, the goal here was to empower, or the goal here is to empower. The objective here is also to strengthen ability of women to make strategic life choices and put those choices into action. The strategy is to enhance women's decision-making power at the household level as well as the community level and address key areas of disempowerment. Some indicators in this approach address women's decision-making power, for example, in agricultural production, income, or household food consumption, reduction of outcomes associated with disempowerment, for example, gender-based violence, or time burden. The approaches under this the programming under this approach is focused on being transformative. So it wants to address the roles and responsibilities at the household community level. It also wants to challenge the social and cultural norms, as well as address issues of access and control over resources, as well as participation and decision making of women. Feminism. What is feminism? I'm sure you've heard this word so many times, and so many different things come to mind when we think of it or when we see the word. The definition of feminism is a political stance and commitment to change the political position of women and men, boys and girls, in a bid to promote and achieve gender equality. Just to support the previous slide, I'd like to discuss three initiatives that are in line with that. And the first is the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, of 1981. This is the only human rights convention that obliges states and nations to abolish any social attitudes and cultural practices that are based on the idea of inferiority or superiority of either sex. The Beijing Declaration and Platform of Action of 1995 provides guidance and inspiration to realize gender equality and human rights of women and girls everywhere. It addresses 12 critical areas, and just to name a few: education and training, power and decision making, institutional mechanism, human rights, and the girl child. Number three is the FIAP, which brings greater rigor and accountability in the implementation of gender equality. It focuses on transforming social norms and power relations. The gender continuum. So here we're going to address the gender continuum as it relates to integration of gendered approaches into different projects and activities. For example, projects that are gender blind are designed without any information or without conducting any prior gender analysis that addresses the differences between women, men, boys, and girls regarding the roles and responsibilities, regarding leadership and decision making, or access and control over resources. Projects that are gender aware, on the other hand, are sensitive to these needs, are sensitive to the needs of these different groups, women, men, boys, and girls. They are sensitive to the power inequalities. They're sensitive to issues of rights, as well as any political, any social aspects, and they at least put into these different needs into the different project activities to make them relevant to the different groups that they are serving. Projects that are exploitative, on the other hand, intentionally or unintentionally reinforce gender inequalities. They do strengthen gender stereotypes, and we don't want our projects to be exploitative. We do not want cause further harm in the areas that we are operating. We want to empower the people in those areas, and so any project that is seeking to reinforce the stereotypes then was not going to be beneficial for that community. Projects that are accommodating somewhat have aspects of differences, but most of their results are not long-term or are not sustainable because it doesn't really look at challenging inequalities per se. And then the projects that we're targeting are transformative projects, such as the PRIDE project, where we want to address the power inequalities between women, men, boys, and girls. We want to address issues of decision making. We want to address leadership of women and portraying, giving them a voice and a platform to air their concerns. We want to address issues of access and control over resources for women, and also we want to challenge systems that are, historically or structurally been created to favor maybe one gender over the other. And we are also focusing on changing any social and cultural norms, be it in behavior and or attitudes and practices. So transformative goes beyond just passing on the skills and knowledge, but it really focuses on the practice and the changing behavior and attitude. So the government of Canada has 4 commitments to the projects that it's funding internationally, whether it's in development or humanitarian assistance. So their first commitment is that they target any projects that are human rights based and are inclusive. And these are any projects that address fundamental human rights. They address people regardless of their sex, their race, their ethnicity, their religion, wherever they are from. As long as they need services, the projects are there to serve them. So they do not want any projects that are, or support any projects that are discriminatory in any aspect. They also commit to supporting projects that are strategic and focused. They want to ensure that the assistance that is being provided will be directed towards those initiatives that best support the empowerment of women and girls, as well as reduce any gender inequalities that might exist. Additionally, They are targeting and supporting projects that are transformative and activist. And these are initiatives that are challenging any unequal power relations, any systemic discrimination, so of organizations or institutions that may favor one sex over the other. They want to target any projects that are addressing harmful norms and practices, but also projects that are engaging different stakeholders. So not just women and girls only, but also including men and boys, including grassroots women's organizations. Lastly, they're targeting and committed to support projects that are evidence-based and accountable. So they want to ensure that all projects that are being designed have been informed by a gender-based analysis prior, and that there are some clear forms of accountability from the planning process to tracking, reporting on gender equality results. The Government of Canada supports initiatives that enhance the protection and promotion of the human rights of women and girls. Also, they support initiatives that increase participation of women and girls in equal decision making, especially when it comes to sustainable development and peace. They want projects that give women and girls more equitable access to and control over resources, and also help protect and promote the human rights of all vulnerable people or marginalized groups, and then also to increase participation of the marginalized groups in equal decision making. Another commitment of FIAP is that by the year 2021 into 2022, more than 95% of Canada's international development assistance initiatives will target 15% or integrate 80% gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls in their projects. It also wants to support targeted investments, partnerships, innovations, and research on any projects with the greatest potential to close gender gaps and any unequal power relations and improve everyone's chance for success. Also, it wants to commit to a feminist approach in all assistance program, international assistance programming, and also it just wants to ensure that there's a significant shift in what we do and how we do gender. And that's why this is really important, that we have this orientation to understand their stand and how it's going to impact the projects that we implement. The FIAP has 6 core areas of action. The first one is gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. The second is human dignity, and this covers projects that address health, education, humanitarian assistance, and nutrition. The third area is growth that works for everyone, and these are projects that target sustainable agriculture, green technologies, and renewable energy. Core Action Area 4 addresses environment and climate action. These are any projects that focus on adaptation and mitigation and water management. Core Action Area 5 addresses inclusive governance, and this includes democracy, aspects of human rights, and the rule of law. In Core Action Area 6 addresses peace and security, which ensures that we're promoting inclusive peace processes and combating sexual and gender-based violence. So this is just a pictorial depiction of the core action areas. And as you can see, gender equality is at the top and it's underpinned by the rest of the 5 core action areas. So it just shows that gender equality is really at the core of our international assistance, and that all these other projects that we're doing also are promoting gender equality in one way or another. Gender equality results. So these are outcomes that are describable or indicate some aspect of measurable change. They explicitly address the reduction of gender inequalities or the improvement of equality between women and men, girls and boys. A gender equality result is a measurable change from a project's output or lower level results. So for a project to be considered for funding by the Government of Canada, it should meet some minimum expectations for gender equality. The first would be that gender analysis should be conducted prior to the designing of the project and should include or identify any key gender inequalities in the context that we are proposing to work. The project design, including the outcomes, should address the key issues that have been raised by that project's gender analysis. The project's activities and inputs should be appropriate, feasible, relevant, designed to achieve gender equality. Also, appropriate indicators that measure gender equality outcomes, relevant sex and age disaggregated data, and gender sensitive baseline data and targets should be set. It's important to note that a project is either specific or integrated. When it's integrated, it can either be fully integrated or limited. This is the type of change for which the project was designed. Levels of gender equality integration. So when a project is considered to be specific, it means then that the initiative has the sole purpose of addressing gender equality at the ultimate outcome level. If the project is fully integrated or has full integration, it is designed to bring some observable changes in relation to entrenched attitudes, harmful practices, or traditions in terms of gendered roles and responsibilities. And this is seen at the intermediate outcome level. If the project has limited integration, it brings about some change, usually the levels of skills, awareness, knowledge, and also can meet gender-specific needs that contribute to gender equality. And this is usually seen at the immediate outcome level. How we do gender equality, some gender themes and elements of the BRIGHT project. We can see that the project is focused on reducing barriers, building and improving education system, as well as promoting skill gain and transfer. In relation to that, so they are the first project team for reducing barriers, aims to increase community-led action in breaking multidimensional barriers to gender equal education. And it's going to do this through the sensitization and building the capacity of community members, particularly women, but also supported by men, to address these barriers faced by vulnerable girls and women in accessing education. The second stream will aim to improve the availability of inclusive and innovative education systems through the TEST approach. And then the third stream of the project will increase the learning opportunities for livelihood skills by providing market-driven, localized, gender-responsive, and environment-sensitive skills training. Lastly, additional gender themes in the BRIGHT project include the training and awareness raising of key community gatekeepers and leaders in education, to include teachers and staff at the Ministry of Education. We want them to be agents of change within their community. Additionally, training in leadership that will be provided to the women leaders to enhance their leadership capacity to influence the peace process and community decision making. And then also establishment of male and boy champion groups who will address the issue of SPV, but also enable men to be positive role models in the community by addressing sensitive gender equality topics. Thank you.